Okay, I'm in a very awkward position and it might be kind of echoey. I'm in like a gazebo type thing at the park because it has a table here and I needed to set the phone down for this part. Okay, so, woo, gosh. All right, so how do you figure out the movements of your pendulum? First things first, you may see sometimes online it says, you know, the pendulum will move this way for yes and it will move this way for no. That's not right. There's not like one universal direction for a pendulum. It's unique to each individual and sometimes even it's unique to each pendulum. Some people like to have different pendulums for different uses. Some people like to just work with one, totally up to you. If you do work with multiple pendulums, more than likely your pendulum will probably spin the same way for each yes, no, I don't know, or reword your question. It'll spin the same no matter which pendulum you're using, but go ahead and try. If you get a new pendulum, ask it the same questions to see, because every now and then it might throw you off. You might have different directions. But so to figure it out, you just want to hold your pendulum. Some people like to hold it like this. Some people prefer to hold it like this. Just whichever feels most comfortable to you. I prefer to hold it like this. And sometimes I'll even rest my arm on a table, but you can hold it up if you want. Again, kind of just what is good to you, feels good to you. And for this, I'll hold my hand under it and you can just ask, show me yes. And then just kind of let the pendulum spin and do its thing and see which direction it goes. For me, here it goes. It is kind of windy, so it's kind of pushing it. But for me, yes is back and forth. And then you can kind of reset it and say, show me no. And it will spin to show you the no direction. Some people like to just do yes or no, and that's it. I find it helpful to do yes, no, I can't answer that right now, because sometimes we're not meant to know the answer. I mean, we do have free will and all that good stuff, but sometimes, you know, if you're connecting with your guides or you're trying to figure out something for the future, you may get an I don't know response, or like, I can't answer that right now. And it's simply because we're not really supposed to know the answer at that time, because we have free will. We're supposed to kind of make our own choices. And speaking on that as well, it's better to not say like, should I take this job? You would want to word it instead as, you know, would this job add value to my life? Will I be happy at this job? Those kinds of things, rather than asking like, should I? Am I going to? Those kinds of questions. Put it more as, if I get this job, will I feel this way? You know, yeah, those kinds of questions. So yeah, yes or no, basic questions or movements that you need to know. I like to also do, I can't answer that right now, and then also reword your question, because sometimes you maybe worded the question in a way that is kind of confusing for your intuition or your guides or whoever you're receiving information from. It may be a little bit of a confusing question. So in that case, reword the question. Simple is always better, because sometimes too, you may be asking multiple questions in one question, and then the pendulum's like, I can't answer that because one answer is yes, one answer is no. So always break down your topic into smaller questions, a single question for each answer. And then, yeah, that's it. As far as movement, you'll be able to kind of feel if you're forcing it. It feels different when you're just letting it naturally spin versus you forcing it to spin. And if you do it outside, make sure it's not windy like it is right now, because this is just going all over the place. But that's really kind of it for movements. I'll talk about some other movements later on in the video, but that's the basics of it. So let's talk pendulums. So first things first, a pendulum is basically just a weighted object at the end of a string or a rope or a chain. There are simple pendulums just on the end of like a silver or some other type of chain. You could literally just use a necklace. You could use a fancy handmade pendulum. I purchased this one from the lovely Corey Gunn, or you could make your own. I happen to make that one myself. But really, any weighted object at the end of a string will work for you. Okay, now that you know how your pendulum moves for yes or no, a fun thing that you can do with your pendulum is to find lost objects. So you would simply say, is the lost object down this path, for example? And if it swings yes, then you would continue down the path. And then say we got to a fork in the path, you could say, is my lost item to the left? Wait to see if it says yes or no. You could then do, is it to the right, and see if it says yes or no. And just continue to do that. If you're looking for an object in your house, you could say, is the object in the living room? Yes or no? Is it in the north corner of the living room? And so on and so forth. You could also do this searching for an item thing in order to really connect yourself to your pendulum and really get used to learning the yes and no and how your pendulum works, to really connect to it. So you could have a friend or a family member hide an object in your house, and then you can go around and searching for it that way. It's just a good little exercise in trusting your intuition and trusting the movements of the pendulum. So how do pendulums work exactly? There's a few different theories, but the one that makes the most sense to me is that we receive intuitive messages, whether we're connecting with a guide, a deity, ancestor, or just our own intuition, our own higher self. We're utilizing our intuition. And so we're kind of putting out that sixth sense. And then in return, our brain, once it receives the information, it sends a little electrical impulse down through our arm. It's starting to rain. Down through our arm, which then causes us to ever so slightly move the pendulum. So the pendulum is kind of just a tool for your intuition to work through. Not everybody can, clearly hear intuitive messages or clearly see intuitive messages. So this is such a great tool to work with your intuition in a very tangible and practical way. So another way that you can learn to get really comfortable with the yes and no, and is it really me interpreting my intuition or am I forcing the answer, is to just ask questions that you for sure know the answer to. So, what is your name? What's your age? And notice that the pendulum should spin correctly, and then try to make it spin for no. So, for me, I would say my name's Charisse, and I would purposefully move it in the no direction. And then with that, you just simply notice, how does it feel? It should feel less forceful when you're just letting the energy flow through you versus when you're kind of controlling the answer, the outcome. Sometimes that does take some getting used to, but just notice the subtleties. And that's why the fun games of searching for a lost object and things like that, and answering questions that you for sure know the answer to and forcing the wrong answer. These really teach you and help you learn how to feel the difference between forcing an answer and, oh, little butterfly, squirrel, forcing an answer and just letting it flow. On that topic too, if sometimes you're asking questions that might be really emotional to you, or you might be in a heightened state of emotion, whether that's sadness or anger or worry, sometimes that's not the best state of mind to be in when working with your pendulum. When working with your pendulum, you want to be relatively relaxed and calm. Maybe do a little bit of meditation before you start, something to just kind of center and ground yourself. Also sometimes, and this is the same with reading cards as well, if you are too close to the situation and you're too hopeful for a specific outcome, you can really sway your pendulum in that way, and then you just end up all kinds of confused. So I suggest either to set the pendulum down, step back, take a while, and then try it again when you are in a more calm, neutral state of mind. Or if you're really confused by the answers that the pendulum is giving you, you could then try some other type of divination, like pulling some cards or some runes, or something like that. A great thing you can do with your pendulum is to help you choose which crystals to work with. And you can do this with crystals, tarot cards, to help you choose a tarot card. Really, the options are endless. You simply take the options that you're choosing from and hold the pendulum over it and wait for it to swing in your yes direction for the crystal that you're needing in that moment. This is also a great way to build up your intuition. You could also do the yes-no exercise with this, is this crystal the Dalmatian jasper? And it should say no. Is this crystal the Dalmatian jasper? It should say yes. Just different little exercises to get used to it. You can also use your pendulum to clear the energy from your decks, your crystals, really any item or person or even room. And for that, you would simply just put the pendulum over the item that you're clearing or the space that you're clearing. And I like to kind of get it started moving in a counterclockwise position to remove energy. If you were infusing an item with energy or intention, you could use your pendulum and swing it to the right. So maybe you wanted to infuse your deck with clear readings. You could swing the pendulum clockwise and infuse your deck with that energy. But for clearing the energy or infusing it, really, you want to get it started in the direction that you want it to go in, and then you just kind of let it do its thing and kind of stop naturally on its own. If the item has a lot of energy that needs to be cleared, or you're putting a lot of intent into it, it might spin for a little while, but just kind of let it do its thing, and when it stops on its own, the energy has been cleared or the intention has been put into the item. So many things that you can do with your pendulum. You can even figure out which chakra points or energy points are blocked or maybe open too much, and you can figure that out with depending how slow or fast the pendulum moves. If it's moving very quickly over like your throat chakra, the throat chakra is very active, and then you might want to do some things to kind of tone it down a little bit. Whereas if the pendulum moves very slowly, that's kind of letting you know the energy isn't going too quickly there, so you might want to do some things to amp up that energy. Really, at the end of the day, there are so many ways that you can use your pendulum and work with your pendulum. Just be creative with it and really just kind of think of out of the box ways that you can work with it, and just have fun with it. The more you work with it, the better the outcome and the more comfortable you get with it. So I hope you enjoy working with your pendulum. Have a great day. Bye.